Hello, welcome back to Simple Shrink. Glad you're here. So, today we're going to talk about meds. When you talk about that, eventually we're going to get into all the specific disorders because, well, I think it's things we need to educate ourselves about. However, we need to start closer to the beginning, and I'm going to issue a disclaimer. Therapists, we can't prescribe. That's the thing. We need to find out who the prescribers are because I've met so many people and they need their meds. Either they're between insurance, between jobs, or whatever. And so many people feel they have to see a psychiatrist, which is an MD, specializes in psych meds. It can be very expensive. However, there are more ways to go about that, and we're going to talk about why do we need this. Not everybody, some of us, and I'm going to do a lot of talking about me here because, well, I use myself as an example. Again, a disclaimer though, we don't prescribe. I can't call up another therapist and say, hey, I'm out of my whatever it is, can you fix me up? No. I have to go to a psych nurse, PCP, or psychiatrist, just like everybody else. But another disclaimer is that as a therapist, I haven't met anyone that, I'm just going to say we only advocate for meds if you need it, if you're not responding to therapy or it's already been diagnosed that whatever your disorder is, that you do need meds. And one thing I want to confront is there are still some very antiquated, very old ideas. No, I don't want those nerve pills. I don't want to be hooked on that. It just controls your mind. And I come across people that, that's how they feel. They don't have a clear picture of what their meds can do or what they do now. Used to, oh God, how many years ago? Wow, I am that old. I will not say. So, tranquilizers are what they prescribe. They're very addictive. But now we know better than that. However, I want to ask that if you will join me, please. I have made a full commitment to help erase the stigma of people needing to take their medication and or having mental health issues. The thing is, at one time, I lost a spouse because he was embarrassed of his meds, and so if you would join me in this fight, I just want everybody to be educated and feel you're not a leper, there's nothing wrong with you, your brain's a bit different. However, wait till you hear about mine. So, what I have done, I got some handouts here. Yes, they look like kid coloring because my color printer ribbon was not working, and so I had to color them in. It does look like kid scratch, but hopefully you get the idea. I have some pictures of some brains. That kind of sounded funny. I decided I'm going to use my mental health diagnoses to help you better understand it. I have one. This is, well, I wanted to get a picture of the one I have. I have the major depressive disorder with psychotic features. Yes, I hear little telephones ringing, and I know damn well I don't have a landline. I hear doorbells, silly things like that, and which I feel I'm very lucky because a lot of people, what is this thing? A lot of people they can hear so many things that are just really overwhelming and scary. Like when I was a little kid, no, early adulthood too, and I would hear mariachi music. I didn't know what it was called, but it was always on this side of my head. I could hear like a newscast, but I didn't know that was called hearing voices. I thought, yeah, I hear a radio all the time, I thought voices was like, you have to kill the science teacher or something. And, I'm making a joke, but a lot of people live with that, and it's very hard. So, I'm going to show you this picture. You can see it. This is the depressed brain. It was just showing me for major depressive, and you can see This is a normal brain. And you can see the difference, and obviously, and that's what we call a chemical imbalance. And let me ask you, can I help that my brain is that way? Another question, can I think myself out of it? Like a lot of people are just so hard on themselves. Yeah, but I should be able to handle it. Okay, well, if you had half a leg, would you sit there and be saying that? I mean, you would have to adapt, and you would do the proper things to handle your situation. However, there would be a physical, medical problem, actually. And this is the same, because the brain is either a different shape, or let's just call it an anomaly. It's actually an anomaly of the brain. And that's what it looks like. I'm one of those people that also don't produce enough serotonin. And you've heard of SSRIs. Maybe you have. A type of antidepressant, very most prescribed selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Or if I do have the serotonin, my brain says, no thanks. Anyway, that makes sure that all the right chemicals do their job. But then, see, I have a little extra wrong with me, so I also have to have an SSNI. It's actually a combination pill, because I also need I want to say the norepinephrine. That can't be right. There's another chemical that I have to have. And, again, if you happen to have ever been diagnosed with major depressive disorder, can you help it? No. I can only help what I do about it. So, let's look at this. So we have, this is such bad artwork, but we have here, and it's showing up backwards. I have here a ADHD brain, and then normal brain. And the reason all these look so different is because when they did these brain scans, they were only scanning for the one thing, like say ADHD or depression, and so that's why these look so different. And I sit here and think, wow, I got all these combined. How do you think that looks? I don't know. But I've had so many clients come to me and, yeah, but I'm crazy. You're not crazier than me. You're not more messed up than I am. You know, let's do this together. So let's look again. We see the ADHD brain, and look at all this extra stimulation and stuff that is going on. And once again, can I help it? No. I use a lot of coping skills. That's one I don't choose to medicate. A person can. However, with my, when I take my other meds, and I hate to call it a cocktail, but yeah, I'm on a good mix. And so I don't struggle with it as much, and I'm able to do well in a work day. However, with ADHD, those of us that do have that, I will tell you one thing. We are the king and queen multitaskers. You can do about 8 things at once. So, little tidbit though about the ADHD. It's very interesting. How it works is on the pituitary gland. And I didn't know that. I thought, okay, that's the growth one, right? But how do I simplify? I gotta simplify for myself. But it does interesting things. And a lot of the parents that don't want to medicate their kids for that, some of them use what's called the coffee cure. It's not a cure, but they go ahead and give them caffeine in the mornings, and it does the reverse. It calms it down, where somebody else is going to pep them up and make them go faster. It's just, I think that is so fascinating how the ADHD brain works. And again, we're going to talk a lot more about these things in depth, but right now we're going to do this. Here is a big, huge one. I will be doing a whole unit on this, probably several episodes, because unfortunately many people have this. So here we go. PTSD brain. Yes, I messed up, I did them wrong, but this is a normal brain. And check out this PTSD brain. Isn't that something? Lady Gaga was talking to a late night talk show host, and she was trying to explain that the brain actually changes shape when there's trauma, and actually it does. And I've had so many people sit there and like, I'm not crazy. No. It's the brain doing its job. When we can't deal with a whole traumatic situation at once, well, our brains are kind of smart. They save it for when we think we can handle it, but it makes us feel so crazy. So crazy. After so long, and the brain does change shape, and no, you can't help it. I believe there are some medications. I don't think for PTSD specifically. However, there are medications that really, really help the system. The symptoms. So, like, my daughter was on one for hers in her nightmares. And I guess it worked so well, but then she wasn't having any dreams at all, so she decided she didn't like that. But it can be managed, and it can ease up your life a lot. We will be talking about, in the future, coping skills for what we call flashbacks. Many of you may know what that is, and it can just be so overwhelming. So overwhelming. And the saddest thing is, we have a lot of combat war veterans, not just veterans, but especially the veterans, that they make it through, they come back home, and they end up dying because they just can't deal with it. And that is just so heartbreaking. But I wanted to show that to you. And I knew I had an anxiety brain. Where the heck? I cannot find that one. Because I also have, here's what I have. I'm going to let you, I'll be your guinea pig. So, what I have major depressive disorder with psychotic features, generalized anxiety disorder. That's crippling in itself for a lot of people. I have, okay, we did the PTSD and ADHD. Okay, those 4 are me. That's what I mean. You're not crazier than me. But I did want to do one more because, I almost said it's so popular. No, it's so prevalent. We see a lot of it, and it is a physical, medical anomaly. Here we have, alright, we have a normal brain. Yes, I had to scratch things out. I colored the wrong freaking pictures. And we have a bipolar brain. And isn't that interesting? Whatever all this stuff is, okay, we got all this extra pink and purple and stuff that is not present in a regular brain. And I wanted you to see that because, once again, don't be so moody. Why you like that? Why, and they can't help it. They can take their medication, and it is needed to regulate that. Well, and they can do therapy and coping skills. However, I think some people get afraid with bipolar about their meds, and some people quit taking them because the manic high, it is just amazing, but it's very dangerous. People engage in risky behaviors, and they can stay awake for days sometimes, but then there's a crash, and our systems aren't meant to be doing all that and staying up for days and just running races, remodeling houses and shit all the same day. And that is, our bodies aren't supposed to be dealing with that. And, there's several types of bipolar. We'll get into that later. However, the medication, it won't make you numb. What it will do, like here's bipolar. Highs and lows and highs and lows, and sometimes there are farther between and sometimes there's not. However, what it will do, what the medication works to do, is that you may still have highs and valleys, but you know, it might be more like this. And again, for all the misinformed people about medication, and unfortunately, mental health is the youngest field of medicine, and so there is still so much stigma. However, we understand now those are actual medical disorders. We didn't always know that, but now we do understand that. So what it will do, it just makes things more livable, and for those around you too. And I have so many stories about that regarding myself. I'm not bipolar, but let's not even go there. ADHD and major depressive, woo, feels the same way, works different. But what it does, it will make it not so, well, it'll make it not so, such a dadgum drop, you know, and so many bipolar people are very suicidal because of that. And I'm not bipolar, however, let's see, when I was in my earlier 20s, I did the thing, and back then they thought, okay, you may need medication, but we'll just give it to you for a month or two just to get you out of the slump, and then maybe your brain will do the work. And now we realize it doesn't. You know, if my brain is not manufacturing the right chemicals, I mean, why is it going to do it in a month or 6 months or a year? You know, that regulated me for what, 30 days or whatever, and then you're without it again. But it makes you feel normal. And where I lived in West Texas, there's virtually hardly any kind of public mental health service, and it takes months for people. And I've heard so many people talking about drugs I only used when I couldn't get my meds. They want to feel normal. And as somebody that had a former addiction to over-the-counter medication, I look back now and I see I was self-medicating myself out of depression. And I hate that, but we live and learn. It came one time, I lost a job, and I just acted ridiculously. Stayed up all night crying, thought the person I was with needed to stay up too, and I acted so hideously. And I had a 4-year-old child at that time, and I thought, I've got to change. And at that time, again, we thought people could just be on the meds for a little while and then stop. Well, now we know it's not the case. So I did go back to the doctor, and I made a commitment to myself and my family that I understood now, and that I would take better care of myself so as not to affect my family and others. I hope that makes sense. And the reason I showed you these pictures, because I want people to understand. And when you can see it, it helps. It is a medical disorder, and I hate how we say that, mental illness. That means, to me, that means like I'm thinking myself sick, or if I just think this way and that way. And there is a lot of psychology and counseling that, you know, we change the way we think, and obviously we do better. However, if I have a physical anomaly, will it help? Maybe yes. However, I lost my train of thought. Okay, well, yes, it makes it easier to use my coping skills. They're more effective. And what I get across to a lot of people, and say if I had arthritis, right? And I got some great medication, I know, to do my exercise or whatever the doctor has recommended that I do. However, let's say the temperature drops way down, like say 16 degrees or something. Could it be possible that I will still have symptoms of arthritis? Would it maybe flare up on a really cold day? Very possibly. People have illnesses, diabetic, whatever, you don't get your medicine, your insulin, it's not going to work, because that's how the body is. But when it's called a mental illness. I like to say mental health issues, and I don't say your illness, what's wrong with you, blah blah blah. I ask people what is your diagnosis, and then we can decide from there, is that correct or maybe not really, or and what would be right for that person to do about it. Like as a therapist, again, we can't prescribe meds, but if it seems that they worked in the past or something you have always needed, we can help advocate for you. When I was, what no matter what age I was one of the very best therapists I had, and she was only an intern, but what she did for me, I signed a release of authorization. I signed a paper for her permission to write a letter to my MD to say, well, the therapy is helping, it's not helping enough. She recommended that I try the medication, and so that helped. If you have a good therapist, man, you've got a gold mine if you have somebody that will advocate for you. This is just so heavy, and again, because this is my brain, I think, man, could I think my way out of this, or am I having a bad day, or what? However, let me ask you this one thing. Is your brain a part of your body? Yes or no? Yes, it's an organ like my liver, my kidney. That's pretty damn important, but so are they. It's like any other in that way. It's like another body part. It has a job to do. However, it might not do it as efficiently. Just like some of us are supposed to take cholesterol medication, high blood pressure med, whatever. Yes, I could probably help the cholesterol if I would do a little more exercise, yes, but my doctor thinks I need medication, so I take it. Does that make sense? I hope it does. I probably have a lot of questions maybe for the way I explain stuff. I try to simplify because I need it simplified myself. However, message me with questions. Message me with something you would like to see me talk about. And for those of you that stayed on me, you want a new video, I appreciate it. I did succumb to the COVID depression. Not a clinical term, maybe it should be. But yes, anyway, we're back, and you will have more episodes. I appreciate you so much for tuning in. Take care.